Hi, and welcome to day 3 of Conics. Today we're going to talk about hyperbolas. What is a hyperbola? A hyperbola is like two parabolas going away from each other, where they are still going towards each respective focus, with the center in the middle, and they originate from the vertex. Now, we still get an axis that's going to be kind of away from where the thing opens up. Now it's called the conjugate axis, as opposed to the directrix we talked about with parabolas. So, I look at the equations. We get x minus h squared over a squared minus y minus k squared over b squared for horizontal, and vertical, same deal. You'll notice that a is always first. Always, always, always. You might also find out here that a does not have to be bigger. And in fact, because c squared is now the plus, c is the biggest. And the last change you might notice from ellipses is it's a subtraction sign. That's the major one. It creates a sort of reflection where the parabolas go away from each other. Now, the nice thing is we have less coordinates. For example, we're only going to deal with our center, our vertices, and our foci, because you don't have co-vertices to keep track of. So, the thing to notice, if the y is first, it's vertical. If the x is first, it's horizontal. So here, x is first, so this is horizontal. So h, what am I taking away from x? 0. K, what am I taking away from y? 0. A would be 25 squared is a squared. I'm sorry, 25 is a squared. Therefore, a is 5. 16, well, b squared equals 16. Therefore, b is 4. And c, again, is c squared equals a squared plus b squared now. So 25 plus 16. So c is the square root of 41, which is what, roughly? About 6.4. Okay. So center h comma k. So that's going to be 0, 0. We get our vertices. So for horizontal, that's going to be h plus and minus a comma k. 0 plus 5, 0 minus 5. So that's going to be 5, 0, and negative 5, 0. Foci, h plus and minus c comma k. So 0 plus 6.4, 0 minus 6.4. So 6.4, 0, and negative 6.4, 0. We get our transverse axis, which is going to be y equals 0. And we get our conjugate axis, which is x equals 0. And then, of course, we can open our parabolas towards our focus and away from our conjugate axis. Here, same idea. Y is first. This has to be vertical. So what am I taking away from x? 0. K, what am I taking away from y? 0. A, first fraction, so a squared equals 4, so a has to be 2. B, second denominator, so b has to be 6. C squared equals A squared plus B squared. So 4 plus 36 is 40. So C is the square root of 40. Which is 6.3. Or if you like reduce radicals, that would be what? 2 square root 10. So all works out. All right, center h comma k, so 0, 0. Vertices, so that'd be h comma k plus and minus a. So I'm going to get 0 for the x coordinate for both of those. K plus a, 0 plus 2 is 2. K minus a, 0 minus 2 is negative 2. Okay. Plus and minus c. So we're going to get 0, 6.3 and 0, negative 6.3. We get our transverse axis, which is going to be x equals 0. We get our conjugate axis, which is y equals 0. And then we can open up our parabolas towards the focus, away from the conjugate axis. Something like that. If you wanted to, you could pick an x value, plug it into your equation, and solve for y and get y values. It ain't that deep. Next one. We can put y over 1. Y came first, so this is a vertical. So H, K, A, B, C. H, what am I taking away from x? That'd be negative 3. K, what am I taking away from y? That'd be 1. A, so a squared equals 1, so therefore a is 1. B squared has to equal 16. So b equals 4. And c squared equals a squared plus b squared, so 1 plus 16. So c equals the square root of 17, which gives us 4.1. Okay. Because this is vertical, we can do our formulas. Let's see. Center h comma k, so negative 3, 1. Vertices of a vertical is h comma k plus and minus a. So my h stays, so I'm going to use negative 3 for both of these. K is 1, a is 1, 1 plus 1 is 2, 1 minus 1 is 0. Foci, h comma k plus and minus c. So we're going to get negative 3 is going to remain consistent. 1 plus 4.1 is 5.1. 1 minus 4.1 is negative 3.1. Read all that stuff. Okay. We have our transit axis is x equals negative 3. We have our conjugate axis would be y equals 1. And then, of course, we can open up our parabolas away from the conjugate axis towards our foci. Next one, x is first, so this has to be horizontal. H, what am I taking away from x? That'd be 0. Okay, what am I taking away from y? That'd be 2. A squared is 4, so a is 2. B squared is 16, so b is 4. And c squared equals a squared plus b squared. 16 plus 4 is 20, so therefore c equals the square root of 20, or 2 root 5. For the sake of today, we'll say about 4.5. So, center. Center is h comma k as always. I don't know why I wrote that out. 0, 2. Okay. Vertex is h plus and minus a comma k. So 0 plus 2, 0 minus 2. So I'm going to get 2, 2, and negative 2, 2. Foci, we get h plus and minus c comma k. So 0 minus 4.5, 0 plus 4.5. So I'm going to get 4.5 comma 2 and negative 4.5 comma 2. We get our transient axis, which is going to be y equals 2. We get our conjugate axis, which is going to be x equals 0 right here. And then my things open up towards their foci, away from the conjugate axis. That's all graphing hyperbolas. Next, writing equations. So looking at these, I would notice that my vertices are consistent. So I would look at my formula sheet and see which set of equations does h plus or minus a comma k. And I would realize that this has to be horizontal. I would recognize, therefore, k has to equal 2 because that's consistent, and that h plus and minus a gives me 5 and 1. Well, again, just like yesterday, h has to be the average of those. So h is going to give me 3. So looking at 3, what would I add to 3 to get 5? What would I take away from 3 to get 1? Therefore, a has to be 2. By following that same idea, I know that h plus c equals 6. So 6 has to be 3. Oop, not a. And I can use c squared equals a squared plus b squared to solve for b there. So I would get 9 equals 4 plus b squared. B squared has to equal 5. So b would be the square root of 5. Now, because I'm going in to write an equation, again, I don't need b technically, but what I need is b squared, so that's a perfectly fine place to stop there. Horizontal equation, so I know it can be x minus h squared over a squared minus y minus k squared over b squared equals 1. X minus 3 over 2 squared, so 4, minus y minus 2 squared over b squared, which is 5, equals 1. Thank you for listening, and I hope you have a great day.